aggressor here from Harlan Fear. And it's going to put him in a position to really clock people where the Rakdos Evoke deck kind of does that, but tries to play a grindy game. Harlan is about killing his opponents.
Sure. And then on Nathan Andress' side, we have this Azorius control list, which I think is going to be very interesting to see up against a aggressive deck like that Death Shadow list. What do you think here?
Yeah, this is sort of the exact opposite. Nathan is trying to take the game nice and slow. It's going to just one for one use things like the One Ring to really, out card advantage the opponent. And then we're trying to combine Narset Parter Veils with Days Undoing to strip our opponent of all our cards as sort of a cheeky way to win games or maybe lock things up in the mid game. So sort of polar opposites here going into the match.
Yeah, well, we are in round 3. Both of our players are 2-0 records, and I am excited to get into this match, Mason, and see how it's going to play out as we kick things off right now. Looks like our players are looking at their hands, maybe still resolving mulligans. Quite a hand it looks like from Harlan there, though. We've got a Dothy, we've got a Ragavan, we've got a Grief.
Only thing Harlan want more is a Not Dead After All to really get that Grief Scam, which his deck is playing.
Of course. And Nathan, it looks like, took a mulligan down to 6. And looks like Harlan is on the play here. Fetch shocking out this Blood Crypt. And we know he's got creatures to play with that.
Yeah, I'm going to be interested to see which threat Harlan wants to lead with here. Ragavan is a really tempting one, but Stalactite Stalker here grows by using the fetch land and also baits out some of the removal, and Nathan knows he's playing it against an aggressive deck.
Right, and we're going to go over to Nathan now, who's going to preordain card recently unbanned for Modern. And he's going to go ahead and draw his card there and pass back to Harlan.
Got a nice shot of these sleek, heavy play mats, our sponsor for coverage this weekend. You can pick up their stuff using the code in the corner of your screen.
That's right. That code is Denver 2024 for 10% off heavy play products. And it looks like we are going to see a Grief come down for Harlan. And we're going to get a good look at Nathan's hand here. And we are going to have the Not Dead After All for the Grief. Huge for Harlan. Gonna leave Nathan with nothing but lands in hand.
Yeah, Nathan does have some utility lands in Gaia Reach Sanitarium and the Ketria Triome, but Harlan has a big clock on the board, and that Stalactite Stalker is going to grow because we did descend this turn.
Descended multiple times even, as he fetches for a Blood Crypt that he's going to go ahead and shock in, it looks like. And we're going to see that Ragavan come down as Harlan just plays all the cards in his hand.
Yeah, I was curious to see how Harlan wanted to play that, if he wanted to play around counterspells or not. This plays into a Wrath, but the Wrath can't happen until turn 4, and Harlan looks to have lethal lined up before that at the current pace.
Yeah, and just as you said, this deck is aggressive, and we are clearly seeing that as a Teferi is going to come up off the top of Nathan's deck for this Ragavan trigger, and Harlan's just going to pass.
Yeah, Harlan might not be able to cast that one, but pretty happy to not have it come down and just, undo the work we've done on this Stalactite Stalker or Grief.
Absolutely. And we see a Leyline Binding in hand for Nathan, which can help stop the bleeding here a bit, but at this point, Harlan's board is so big, and the Stalactite Stalker growing almost every turn. It's powerful.
Yeah. Harlan has Nathan in an awkward spot here.
An NT for Harlan. Incredible creature. Newer to Modern, newer to Magic. It looks like we're going to see him swing out. And we're just thinking about the NT trigger here.
Like this from Harlan. NT as a way to push some damage, but also just knows that terminate probably won't matter too much. And it's much more important to be like, hey, if my opponent has some interactions, they don't die here. I just want to push more damage and just try to put Nathan on the back foot.
Yeah, and he is going to get a Thoughtseize off of the NT trigger. Could play that after combat if he wanted. But we are going to see Nathan fetch out a Triome. Might be seeing that ley line come down.
Yeah, and the Wicked Roll token kind of huge here. Nathan at 8. So if we take this grief down, we're going to fall to 7, and we're going to take 6, excuse me, from the creatures.
That's right, yeah. And Nathan down to 1 life. Not the spot you want to be, especially when your opponent has all these treasures, is able to cast Thoughtseize, get rid of the only non-land card. All game long, it just feels like Harlan leaving Nathan with nothing but lands and taking such firm control of the game so quickly.
Yeah, I really love Harlan's deck. It is about kind of leveraging what is the Rakdos colors good at. We're good at applying quick pressure and putting our opponent on the back foot. Why don't I lean into that more? One of the things that was nice about Fury was you had another 1-mana play. So Light Tag Stalker lets you get that early damage in and can always be a buyout as a removal spell later in the game. So Harlan's build of the deck, very innovative, very good at sort of doing what the Rakdos is good at, and it was exciting to see it kind of play out there.
It was very exciting, and I'm very excited to see how the next game is going to go against these two players, which we're going to get into right away. This time, Nathan is going to be on the play, and it looks like we've got a One Ring, a Solitude. I mean, definitely some options. Definitely hoping he does not face the wrath of the double grief turn 1.
Exactly. And Harlan's deck is really weak to Solitude at certain points. If you ever get 2 Death Shadows in play, the 2 Death Shadows will both always die to the Solitude because the Solitude will gain you enough life off the Shadow to get back to 13, and then Stay Space actions will kill the other Shadow. So you're not going to see Harlan probably put double Death Shadow in play unless he is really thinking that it's his only way to win is to basically say call on Solitude.
Sure, absolutely. And we are going to see the Ragavan come out for Harlan here, which is a creature that no matter what demands respect when you see it come out against you. It looks like we're going over to Nathan, and we can see in his hand there a Leyline of the Void, I believe, which maybe he's hoping to use to answer this Ragavan. There is going to be a Thoughtseize, which Nathan is going to go ahead and fetch in response. Definitely wants to play his spells before they get Thoughtseized away.
Yeah. Get this binding down. Make sure the Ragavan doesn't connect.
All right, so there comes the binding. That's going to resolve. Ragavan's going to get exiled, and now the Thoughtseize will resolve. And a lot to choose from for Harlan. Not going to be able to leave Nathan with nothing but lands this time.
Yeah, and this is a really interesting position. And depending on how Harlan's hand is built, will probably tell you which way he wants to go. The thing that makes the most sense in the dark is just the One Ring. You want to sort of not prevent your opponent from recouping all the resources and buying a turn against you. But Harlan might have a card that lines up well against that in hand. Like he might have a couple Orcish Bowmasters or something. Looks like that's not the case, so he's just going to knock out the most powerful card.
Right, let's say we do see an NT and a Not Dead After All. A couple NTs, actually, for Harlan and a Bolt there. So definitely makes sense he would want to get rid of that One Ring early before it ever has a chance to hit the board.
Yeah, and Harlan's Crocs that we saw in hand too is going to be a really important tool if we can get to the point in the game where we're bringing that back. And, with Nathan seeming to have a lot of answer spells, it's pretty likely as long as he can dodge the Solitude on the Crocs.
Yeah, and we are going to see Harlan here is going to fetch, shock a land. Looks like he is at 13 life presently. but we're going to see an NT come down, which
Yeah, I think we might see it.
we really saw last game that NT can do quite a lot, and that's actually just going to get countered by Nathan, it seems.
Yeah, Harlan has a bit of a wombo combo in hand. We have a Street Wraith. So if we can get our NT down, we can cycle that for just 2 life and, draw a card off the Street Wraith and get a look at another card off the NT to try and develop there. So Nathan immediately counterspelling that to prevent something like that from occurring once again in his open deck list. And Nathan is aware this is something that could be happening to him.
Yeah, we're going to go back over to Nathan, who's going to get his 4th land down. Notably, Harlan only on 2 lands. But he is going to go ahead and buy his companion and pass back over to Harlan. Harlan's going to try once again to resolve an NT. And this time it looks like he's going to be successful.
No 3rd land still there from Harlan. Picked up his 4th NT, though. So if you like that card, you're going to be seeing a lot of it.
Yeah, definitely no shortage of NTs for Harlan. Did pick up a Grief, though. We know he's got the Not Dead after all. He's going to go ahead and start with a Thoughtseize on Nathan, which is going to force out one of these plays early. There are 2 Solitudes in Nathan's hand.
Yeah, and that is going to be awkward for Harlan, but he is able to maybe force Nathan to do it at a time he doesn't want to.
All right, so he is going to go ahead and evoke the Grief, pitching the Kroxa. And Nathan thinking if he wants to go ahead and respond now. Looks like he is fetching a land out.
Yeah, looks to probably be hard casting the Solitude would be my guess here. That way you're still going to lose cards to the Grief, but you now have a blocker for the NT. The Grief doesn't get scammed on you. Oh, and it looks like Nathan, I like this actually a lot, is going to go after the NT and says, hey, you know what, Harlan? If you want to not after all that Grief, that's fine. I don't mind losing these cards.
Sure. Now, Harlan, as we know, has plenty of NTs to spare, so maybe isn't too upset about this, but is going to go ahead and get rid of a Lorien Revealed for Nathan, who is just going to draw another Lorien Revealed.
That was a very good draw. Harlan had got the game down to nothing with an NT and Grief. Now, Solitude is hard to race, but that was a devastating play there. And looks like Nathan has a lot going still.
Yeah, able to draw some cards, play a land, preordain, really just do a lot when it didn't look like he was going to have much of a turn after that double Grief. He's going to attack in with the Solitude, gain a little life. We're going to go back over to Harlan.
Yeah, and looks like Nathan does have a counterspell. Harlan with Bolt NT and a land in hand. I'm curious to see how Harlan wants to play this because there's a lot of different ways that you can take it here.
Right, he's going to go ahead and play another NT, attacking with the Grief, discard a Marsh Flats, hits a Bowmasters off of the NT trigger. No chance of playing that this turn, and is going to be stuck on 2 lands still as he passes back to Nathan.
Yeah, you can see a little bit of desperation there from Harlan, discarding the land when he has the Bolt for the Solitude. I think Harlan thought, if I have another land on top of my deck, I'm going to be in a bad spot even if I do answer the Solitude, with Nathan topping twice throughout the preordain, so I need to make a play that lets me get out of this.
Right, and Harlan is going to go ahead and scoop up, which is going to bring us to a game number 3 between these decks.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for Harlan there, just kind of picking it up. Maybe he could battle for like another 10, 15 minutes and maybe win, but you can tell the writing's on the wall. He knows he's out of steam. He wants to give himself the most time to think for his future plays and just pick them on up.
Yeah, and we've talked about play draw in some of the other matches today. How important do you think it is for this match that Harlan is starting game 3 on the play?
I think it's pretty important. It's really important to remember that Harlan's deck is an aggro deck. It is trying to beat down. So having turn 1 Stalactite Stalker or Ragavan really is going to put the opponent on the back foot. And it sounds like Harlan and them are ready to go. So let's head back into the feature match area.
Yeah, we'll see if Harlan is able to have a explosive start here, get some creatures down. We do see a Not Dead After All in his hand as he is fetching. So if there's a Grief in there as well, this could be quite the opening turn as he shocks in a Blood Crypt.
That's about as explosive as they get, is the turn 1 double Grief.
And there it is. And even pitching a Not Dead After All to do it. What a flex.
Yeah, if you're Nathan, you're hoping. Has the Stern Scolding, which is typically very good against Grief if you're on the play, but on the draw, not exactly what you're looking for.
Right, we're seeing Teferi, Stern Scolding, a Leyline Binding, and a counter spell with a couple of lands for Nathan.
Yeah. I would imagine Harlan for sure wants to get the Leyline Binding, simply because that is a card that actually removes the Grief from the board. And then everything else seems totally reasonable and depends a lot on his hand. There's even a world where Harlan has more discard spells and takes the other counter magic and that leaves the other ones. But it looks like he is just going to take that Binding and then figure out exactly what to do.
He's gonna think very, very carefully about this one, as probably this decision is going to shape a lot of the next few turns of this game.
Yeah, and if you're Nathan, this is probably a pretty big tell that Harlan has some follow-up creature for the next turn. And so if you draw something like a Triumph, you might want to not play that on turn 1 and instead play the Island and Stern Scolding if he gives it to you. Because I think, given most hands, you would just take the Teferi because it will unsummon the Grief. So sort of a sign that Harlan has something going on there that he wants to play.
Right, so he does take the Stern Scolding. Nathan just plays a fetch land and passes. And Harlan is going to jump at the opportunity to get in for some damage with the Grief. I think I saw a Stalactite Stalker in his hand, but he is going to fetch out a land real quick, shock in that Blood Crypt.
I think we're going to get our little friend on the board.
There he is. And we did fetch this turn, which means we did descend. So he will get a counter once we get to the end of the turn. And it looks like that's happening right now. So Nathan is going to fetch as well, get a Triumph on board. And this feels like an ideal start for Harlan.
Yeah, Harlan has put Nathan on the back foot. Now, Nathan needs to just simply draw a land to get that Teferi to unsummon and could potentially stabilize, but Harlan's going to push a bunch of damage. And then Nathan's kind of on the back foot for the rest of the game and making it so the One Ring from his side might be a little bit worse of a card because the life cost could be higher.
Right, and we are seeing Nathan choose to play the Preordain instead of holding up for the counterspell, knowing how important this Teferi is.
Yeah, I like this a lot from Nathan. Just Harlan's on so few cards. Let me try and make sure that I can play this Teferi and unsummon this Grief and get the pressure off.
Sure, and we are going to see just a quick cycle from Harlan, and he's going to swing out with his creatures.
Yep.
And there's going to be another Descend, another counter on the Stalker, and we are back over to Nathan. Oh, it looks like he's going to ending the Stalker and then play a Triumph. Harlan knows Teferi is online next turn.
One good thing about this turn 4 Teferi from Nathan, if you're a Harlan Fear fan, is that with the Wicked Roll token getting bounced, it's going to do one more, and then Harlan's going to have a 3-2, which means if Nathan doesn't answer the 3-2 before it connects, we're going to be in a very awkward position of not being able to fetch until we gain some more life. So,
and we do see the Fairy come down immediately on Nathan's turn. He's going to go ahead and bounce that Grief, take the damage from the Wicked Roll, taking him down to 4.
I love this from Harlan, by the way. We could have played our Swamp last turn, but if we do, maybe Nathan uses some different answer on our Grief, and we want to redeploy it. So we just pass, make it look like we don't have anything. maybe we don't, we just got a bunch of 4 mana cards in hand and force Nathan to do that and kind of guarantee that, we're going to get this grief back on the board.
All right, and he fetches out the crypt, plays the swamp, plays the grief. Gonna get another look at Nathan's hand with 2 more Teferis and a counter spell. He's gonna go ahead and take the counter spell, leave Nathan with a hand full of Teferis.
Now, this is huge. Harlan has Lightning Bolt in hand and a Pithing Needle. So we might see Nathan do something like take up my Teferi, play a new Teferi, bounce this grief, that way I don't die. And, Harlan might be able to do something if he draws a land like play a grief, check the way, and then bolt you, or even evoke the grief if we draw a black card. Harlan, who has flooded this game, might be able to steal this one.
Right, and each point of damage here from the fetches to the Wicked roll could end up mattering quite a bit with Nathan at a very precarious 3 life. And as he said, he is going to play the second Teferi, bounce the grief, and looks like that might be it for Nathan. Not sure if he has another play here. He's just going to play a land and say go.
Harlan knows half the cards in Nathan's hand. And yeah, I think Harlan drew the fetch land. So as long as he has the 4th Blood Crypt in hand,
he's going to go ahead and fetch. Get a crypt. Bolt Nathan. That is going to be game for Harlan.
Yeah, and that was a really exciting game.